In this demonstration, we're going to show how Boardwalk can be used for an HR application where I'd like to be able to take different employees that I have perhaps across different companies, different departments, and different business units and locations, and be able to manage their allocation to different parts of the business, and then also be able to capture information about when did they hire into this current position, when were they terminated, what's their next employee review date, and capture this information either for the purposes of actively managing staff that I have in the moment, or if we're doing an acquisition or recalibration of existing staff, coming up with a way to be able to do this using the Boardwalk platform. Now, one of the things that you want to be able to do is to take the information, the master data, if you will, for all your employees, and have that information managed separately and pulled from your transactional system. So in this case, all the information about current salary, what are their different healthcare options, what are the different environments that dictate their employee master data. But you also want to make it so that when individual people are interacting with the system, they're only seeing their data. And with Boardwalk, you're able to take any one of the columns that are associated with the information you're sharing and saying, I'd like to set up a criteria against that. So for example, as the manager, which is the role I'm working in now, I'm able to see all of the data, but for the USA user, I want the USA user only to be able to see information for the location and the country associated with USA. Now with the Boardwalk database, you're able to do this such that when the USA user logs in, they only see that data, but as the manager, I'm seeing all the rest of the information. So how would that work? Well, right now I'm opening up the manager version, but let me go back and take a look at what the USA person sees. Well, when the USA person sees their data, and they do that by coming into a template which is blank and has no data in it. It could be emailed or available from SharePoint or Dropbox or anything else. And when they click on download template, it asks you to log in, and it says who are you, and in this case, since I've logged in as USA, it's only showing me the USA data. There's no other data in this file except the USA data, and that's very important from a security perspective. And then also the employee data over here is showing only the information for USA. So one of the things you want to do is you want to say, hey, I want to make sure I have all the most recent information from the transactional system. So for example, master data from SAP. So I'm going to go ahead and say, well, run the integration and pull that information in from the transactional system so I have it inside of my file. So I'll go ahead and run this. And now I see that the integration's completed successfully. So I can go now and say, okay, well, let me refresh this data. So what I do at this point is it goes to the database and it says, okay, what information's been updated through integration? Go get that and update this master data. And I can see right here that there's been a change to this particular employee's current salary. So they've gone from $59,000 to $59,500. So that means I now have the most recent information that I can come in and look at the data associated with the individual users that I'm working with, and I can say, well, let's see, for this particular user, I'm going to make some changes here. I'm going to say, this next employee review date is going to be, let's say, 5/16/2017. Now you'll notice that conditional formatting is being used, saying, well, you can't really review somebody if they're no longer working here. So this is a capability. You can use all of the functionality inside of Excel. You can also make it so that this user wouldn't be able to submit this change because it would be invalid. But I can say, okay, well, I need to be able to modify this review, and I'm going to be doing this in November. So I'll go ahead and make this change, and I'll say, this update. And the nice thing about working inside of Excel is you can do a lot of changes. I can say more changes here. As I'm doing all this work, I can look at different reports. I can see all of the information and exactly what changes have been done while working inside of Excel. But then I can go in and say, well, all right, let me submit my changes so that other people can see it. So when I come in and I say submit my change, and I say these are my updates, then only the cells that have been changed get pushed to the database. And you can have notifications sent off to everybody else saying different changes have been made. But fundamentally what we're doing is the same thing that we showed you on the employee master, which is making updates to the database and sharing those changes at the cell level. So if I go over now as the manager and the manager, remember, is looking at all of the data, not just the data from USA, and this person says refresh, then it looks at the database and it's going to find the changes that were done by that USA user, and I'll see those changes come in at a cell level. So if I look over here now, just like before, I'm seeing that change value was updated. I can see this employee salary is not up to date, so you could make it so that when you say refresh, it refreshes everything inside the workbook as opposed to just that individual page. But in this case, I've gone in and I said let's refresh this as well, so that I'm getting the most recent information here. And again, this is doing standard Excel, looking at the different data. But then you can take any one of these cells and say, well, I need to understand how this has changed over time, or there's been some commentary here, so let me see how this has changed. So if I say show me the history of these changes over the past quarter, for example, then the database will go ahead and produce those report as a new tab inside the workbook saying show me all the changes that have been done. And in this case now it's just showing me that this most recent change, which I just did, has been pushed to the database, and I can say reproduce that and show it to me at any time. But equally, you can come in and say, I want to understand how this data has changed over, let's say, for example, again, the past quarter, for all of the data that's inside the workbook. So now it says show me the changes, but I can see whether they're rows, columns, cells updated, formulas changed. So here's this change that I just did, but maybe I want to go back and see what did this person do back in September. And in addition to being able to drill into a particular cell, you can go back and say, hey, show me what changes were done in September, and I can see right here that there was a change from 56,000 to 58,000 in terms of updates for the employee salary, for example. But using Boardwalk, all of the most recent information and changes are always automatically consolidated. The change management tells you exactly what updates have been done, and because the database is constantly showing you the most recent information, then all your report data inside of Excel and also pushed to external applications is automatically up to date and reflects the most recent information. Thank you.